Hey everyone, what's up? In this episode, James and I are going to be discussing my one of my most devastating losses to Igor Zinoviev. So check it out. Spilling my guts. Hope you like it. Right on.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. We're back again, and we're taking another look at Enson's career. If you guys remember the last time we were talking about his first loss, which was actually to the fighter Joe Estes on a Shooto show, today we're going to talk the next fight, which was straight after the Joe Estes fight, and that was at the big Vale Tudo 1996 card. Uh, the thing that sort of struck me first when I was looking at the date of this card was the fact, Enson, it was actually a 2-month turnaround. So I'm curious to know a lot about how you were feeling, sort of going from that loss in the Joe fight, where you kind of felt overpowered, and where your mind was at, really coming in and thinking, you got to turn around in sort of 8 to 10 weeks, another fight.
Yeah, well, it was a real hard loss because I've never lost before, so it was my first loss, and I went right back into the training, and I just wanted to get back in there. That was my whole thing. I wanted to get back in there, so I didn't know who I was. It wasn't like I picked the fighter. But I remember telling Sama that I just want to get back in. A lot of when you lose a fight, it could go both ways. It could go one way where you don't want to fight again, or you're hesitant or scared to fight again, or it could fire up and make you want to fight again. That's what it did. It fired me up, and I just wanted to get in. So when I got offered a fight 2 months later, I was like, "That's perfect. Let's do it." Probably would have fought a month later.
Oh, right. Wow. So you kind of just sort of hinted at it there. So did you know anything about Igor Zinoviev going into the fight?
No, we had no footage on him. We know he was a Russian, and Russians are strong. We also knew that he was a striker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he had sambo background. I wasn't sure. I think he had sambo background, but sambo is more joint locks,
Mm-hmm.
not much chokes and stuff. So I was kind of confident in my jiu-jitsu. It was just more the striking, if anything, that I was concerned about.
Right. So at the time, then you didn't know that he'd actually had the win over Mario Sperry, which was actually in the Extreme Fighting promotion before the UFC purchased that
Oh
promotion.
wait, I did.
Oh,
You're
you
right.
did?
I did. I knew he beat him. Yeah, I knew he beat Mario Sperry. Okay, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because Mario had such a big reputation, right? It was that, and you obviously
yeah,
jiu-jitsu fighter, Mario being a really famous jiu-jitsu fighter as
yeah. I
well.
mean, Mario's one of the top jiu-jitsu fighters too. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was going like? Was that playing in your mind a little bit at all?
Well, no, I just felt Mario might be a better jiu-jitsu player than me, but I felt MMA is MMA,
Hmm.
so I felt maybe I could probably work something better. And yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get back in there and mix it up. It wasn't like I said before, I've never fought someone that I thought I could beat.
Hmm.
And when Igor's name came up, I knew he was a good striker, and the Russians are all strong.
Mm.
I was like, yeah, I mean, okay, now you refresh my memory. I did remember he did beat Mario,
Yeah.
and I thought that hey, again, my bottom line and my bottom motive, my biggest motive for fighting was to build myself, test myself in the ring.
Hmm.
So when his name came up, and he was one of the stronger fighters, and he probably would be one that would test me in the ring. I thought, man, let's do it. I got kind of excited, got real motivated, and got you know real excited for training.
And another thing I was curious about this particular card, right, is that obviously there's a lot of the standard sort of Shooto guys on the card who was quite popular, obviously, for Sayama bringing them in, guys like you, guys like Rumina, um, Naboru. But what I was curious about is on the card was obviously Joe Estes. He fought Ed DeCraft. So you got two of your previous opponents there. What's the atmosphere like backstage when do you bump into the guys? Like, is it sort of everyone's super civil with each other, or is it kind of people are kept apart? Like, what's the atmosphere like at a show like that?
Yeah, well, civil because we hardly even there's no communication. If anything, we'll be in the same room taking a group picture. Other than that, we're walking past each other in the halls, and if anything, I maybe acknowledge them. What's up?
Mhm.
That's it. No small talk, no shaking hands. Just what's up, good luck.
Yeah,
So yeah, so for us, it was. I didn't hate them. I beat one of them. I lost to one of them. I didn't hate
yeah,
them. It's just guys that are fighting in the same card now, and I'm
yeah,
concentrating. The man I have in mind is Igor Zinoviev. So
yeah.
those guys are past history for me.
That makes sense. And then the other person I noticed on the card as well was Dan Seven, and he was actually coming off his big win against Ken Shamrock at UFC 9. Did
Mhm.
you have any interaction with Dan? I mean, was it someone you were eyeing up as a future competition, or?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, because he was possible competition in the future. I do not like to make friends with those people. Anybody that I could possibly fight, I never got close to. When I was fighting in Pride, I always wanted to fight Vanderlei Silva.
Mhm.
So I never did ever, get into a deep conversation with Vanderlei. I never did really, get close to him or trying to be his friend. If anything, we would like just nod at each other. If anything, that's the most communication we've had. Never went and shook his hand. Never congratulated him on anything, because he was someone that I thought I was going to fight. So I just wanted to keep my distance and you know not be friends with him.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I always find that like a really interesting approach. The fact that a lot of you guys as fighters are so sort of civil with each other, but you don't want to sort of extend it too much because you don't know whether you might be fighting them or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
especially when in the same sort of weight class, weight division.
Yeah,
Not that
it's
they.
almost like we're super civil because we know we have it. We're very knowledgeable about what the fight world is. That the ring is the ring and the outside is outside.
Mhm,
And because the ring is actually our ultimate, destination eventually for everybody to fight everybody, we do sacrifice outside the ring the relationships, because the ultimate goal is to get into the ring with these guys. So whatever, it's funny because they have, like there's a fighter, Roxy Modafferi.
mhm.
She's the type that wants to take the fighter out to dinner that she's going to fight before the night of the fight.
Wow.
So everyone has their own quirks on it. For me,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even want to see my opponent. If I could, I would skip all the press conferences, all the picture taking, not run into him until I see him across the ring. But of course, as you know, we have our duties as a professional fighter to
Mhm,
do interviews and picture taking with him sometimes. So when that happens, you just gotta try and keep your composure. Don't be friends. Don't look at them. It is hard when you got guys coming up trying to talk to you.
mhm.
It's kind of you don't want to be a dick, so you talk to them, but it's kind of like you keep it short, and it's like, I gotta go. So for me, I was that type that didn't even want to see my opponent, didn't even want to look at him, didn't want to meet him, didn't want to know him, didn't want to be his friend.
Mhm. What about now? Just if you see like ex opponents, if you bumped into them, like how are you with them now? Do you find?
Oh, great, man. I mean, it's funny because before you fight, you have this little tension because you're going to want to kill each other one day in the ring. So you don't want to get too close. But it's funny because once you've shared the ring, there's some type of bond, the stress and the level of stress and the things the training you go through for it, the fact that, you're training as hard as you can because you respect this other person and you respect his abilities to hurt you. For some reason, when you guys let it all go in the ring, man to man, there's a some sort of it's weird, yeah, because when you respect someone, you want to beat them up and stuff. But for some reason, the fact that he was trying to beat me up and I was trying to beat him up, and we were at two pros in the ring, just mixing it up and giving us our best. There's some type of bond that happens. So for me, when I see the other guys, I almost feel like I'm meeting an old friend.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like what's like I just ran into Andre Menard 2 years ago at the K1. His
Oh,
son is like the K1 champ in Japan. So when
yeah.
I went to when I saw Andre, we came up and we talked to you, we hugged and we said, "Oh, what's up? How you doing?" So it was pretty neat. I mean, I felt, like, oh shit, man. We talked about the fight. Like, man, I'm glad it wasn't just stand up. And he said, "Yeah, I wanted to fight stand." I said, "No, I'm not stupid." So we talked. We kind of shook hands. We hugged, and now he actually follows me on Facebook and he comments on stuff. So
That's really cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, for me, I got no grudges against anyone. I see Randy Couture, I shake his hand, talk to him.
Yeah.
So all the opponents that I've lost or won, I'm super cool with them. It's as a professional, I know in the ring it was like you turn on a switch of like a real savage. Yeah, you become a real savage. You want to kill that other person, and then when you come off the ring, turn it off, and then you're just you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, as a fan, I think it's not something you see that often, but two guys who are maybe retired having a sit down, talk about the fight, and just to hear sort of both sides of the perspective would be really interesting. And I know for the followers of this podcast, it's something that we're looking at doing for a few future episodes, right? Maybe getting a few of the opponents on just to sort of hear their side
Oh,
of the
for
story.
sure.
Yeah,
For
so
sure. I'm in touch with Andre. I don't know how good his English is though to actually have a really good podcast. But other fighters. I mean, Frank. I'm good at Frank Shamrock. We could actually talk about that. That'd be a crazy podcast talking with Frank
yeah,
Shamrock.
I bet. Yeah,
I can
especially.
even Randy's a busy man, but if Randy Couture has the time, he'll probably be more than happy
Yeah,
to sit and talk with me. So I mean, there's a bunch of opportunities. So we'll get it. We'll do it
yeah.
eventually.
So make sure if you're not subscribed, everyone subscribe because there's exciting things coming in the future.
Yeah.
So back to the fight then. Talk me through this fight then. In terms of what was your strategy then? Like you were looking to sort of execute going against Igor.
So I felt that with the fight before that, I felt that weight and muscle was a problem because his fight was booked 2 months later. Um, Without using stuff like steroids or growth hormones, I didn't feel like I could get enough weight, you know, in 2 months in
Mhm.
order to actually use the power. So I felt that instead of worrying about the strength, because Igor wasn't that much bigger than me, I felt it was more stamina and technique. So what I did for this fight, which I did for most of the fights up until that fight, was I flew back to Hawaii. Shooto would fly me back to Hawaii, where the weather's warm. I got a lot of sparring partners, and I had Egan there.
Mhm.
So I flew back to Hawaii, and man, beach runs, beach sprints, I mean, swims. I mean, I did so much work. I mean, what I felt like was that Igor is a tough fighter, and in order to beat him, I gotta be in tip top shape, if anything.
Mhm.
Didn't know if my standing and my technique would be good enough to beat him, but all I knew was I was going to be in better shape than him and ready to go as long as I need to go and as fast as I need to go. So that was a big thing for me in that fight. That I trained super super hard for it,
Mhm.
and I felt like I did as much as I could, and I had a lot of a lot of the corners covered, and I was ready, man. I felt I was ready for anything, man. I was ready for this fight.
Awesome.
Then
Yeah.
as I went into the fight, and
Mhm.
it was I felt good. I didn't feel too nervous. I felt really calm, and of course I wanted to take him down.
Mhm.
So I made it. I had a strategy to close space, just keep closing space slowly until we got into striking range, and as soon as he made that first twitch, I was going to shoot in and take him down. And that's exactly what happened if you saw
Mhm.
the fight.
Mhm. So obviously you going for the takedown, and it seems like immediately he's thinking guillotine, uh,
Yeah.
in terms of submission wise, and actually the guillotine was what he got. Well, there's a bit of a debate with the Mario Sperry fight, right? Because he had him in a guillotine and he taps, but then people think it might be to do like a face cut as well or something. I think there was a bit of controversy around that finish, but it's interesting that that was the move that sort of caused the finish. And obviously, straight away in your fight, he's looking for it there as well. Talk me through that though, right? How tight was the grip? Because the one thing that I wasn't sure with the fight was, were you knocked out by the punches or were you out from the guillotine and then the punches were after? It's kind of not.
That's an interesting question because
Yeah.
to walk you through the fight is when I took him down. I was more concerned with the takedown, and I felt I could get out of the guillotine when I got him down. So when I got him down and I got into the guillotine, if a good thing for every fan to know is whenever you see someone in a type of guillotine and they roll over, like if the guy's in the guard and he rolls over to the bottom, or if he's in the guard and he rolls over and the guy mounts him, that's because the guillotine was really deep and they had to try and roll out of it. So the fact that I was on top and I had to roll out to try and I ended up on the bottom was probably because the guillotine was really tight.
Mm.
So what happened then was after I put him into my guard. I got my head out, and before I got my head out, and the next thing I knew, it was like, holy shit, Egan's in the ring. Yeah, so I didn't know exactly what happened, and for me too, I didn't feel like I was the choke was deep enough to affect anything, and maybe it wasn't, and maybe he just caught me with a punch without me seeing it happening, But when I talked to Egan, he thinks that the guillotine was deep enough that I had my brain a little fuzzy. So when he did release it, I wasn't all there to protect the punches. So I think it was like 2 or 3 straight right crosses into my face.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went a little stiff, and the ref jumped in. So I didn't protest it. I didn't really know what happened. I was like, holy shit, did I lose? And as soon as I realized I lost, I thought, holy shit. It was in my whole career, it was like the heaviest loss I've ever took. It hit me so hard. And, I think the big reason why it hit me so hard was because I trained so hard for it. I trained so hard for that fight, and for it to end in 39 seconds was like, man, this sport is just too unpredictable. And I had this weird lost feeling in me thinking like, man, is this worth it? I'm no good in this. I can't do this sport. And the funny thing is as I had that big insecurity, when we're walking back to the ring, Egan leans over to me, and Egan comes over to me and goes, man, this MMA shit, there's too much to cover. I gotta just go back to jiu-jitsu. And that's not what I needed to hear at the point. At the time when I was my pride was hurt, my ego was down, and my confidence level was really low. Hearing that, I was like kind of like jumping on the bandwagon. And honestly, at the time, as we were walking back to the locker room, in my head, it was, yeah, Egan's right. This MMA shit's too difficult to cover. I mean, one punch and all of a sudden, all that training's down the tubes. I felt deflated. I felt like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I was really in that point. If I ever thought of quitting, it was that time right now. Joe Estes' fight, I was motivated to train harder and get bigger, put on muscle, and come out again. And this Zinoviev fight, man, I trained so hard. I just felt like, man, I don't know. And then it didn't help when Egan just plugged it. And I was like, man, fuck, really? I don't know about this. So I went back, to the gym. I had a room at the gym. So I went into my room, sitting down, like, holy shit, what just happened, man? What just happened? Is this even worth it? I can't even cover shit. And I just thought that, Sam was, on this real, positive moves, like, that's the way it is. That's the way fighting is. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way it is. But I don't know if I want to do it if it's like this. It's like really wasting my time. I mean, if it was a struggle and I learned something about myself, and I think the most frustrating thing about that fight was that I didn't learn shit because I didn't make any mistakes. Couldn't learn any mistakes. It was like, it just happened and it was done. So for me, the most frustrating thing was not knowing what to do from here and knowing what I did wrong, what I could have covered, what went wrong. Everything was going perfect until I caught that one punch. And I was like, just so this type of career is, you're going to lose everything in one punch. I'm thinking, this is not worth it. So, Sam was being positive, but, I'm thinking to myself in my head, I want to fight one more time. I'm thinking of, 50-50. I was really 50-50. This is it. I'm done. But I just thought that, Egan's already riding on that, saying, yeah, let's go do jiu-jitsu again, And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe you're right, man. This sucks,
Mm.
man. But I thought, for myself, and so there's no regrets. I thought I'll do one more. And that the next fight I fought, it was really at that fight was pretty much do or die.
Mm.
I told myself, and I knew in my heart that if I lost this fight, I was going to quit. I was going to be done, hang up the gloves, and go to jiu-jitsu. And if I won, then we'll see what happens after that. So
Yeah.
that was a really big turning point in my career. That
Yeah.
fight was huge. That fight could have ended the whole career.
Yeah. That's so is
And it
really,
almost scares me to think about that. It almost scares me to think that
you were like this close
I
to.
almost gave up on the career. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
even my life, it's almost like my life here. When there's 3 times in my life that I really thought of leaving Japan. And I was this close to calling my parents and saying, you know what, I'm done. I'm coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And it scares me to think about that. It scares me to think about that time that I was going to go home, leave Japan, and never have all of this. It also scares me to think about that fight, man. After that fight, I was at that verge of hanging up the gloves.
Mm.
It's crazy. It's crazy how,
Yeah.
you wonder what would have happened if I did. I
Yeah.
mean, I would have probably been huge in jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is not where my heart lays. My heart lays in MMA, so
Yeah.
it was a crazy turning point in my life.
Yeah, so many factors as well, right? In that decision making, it's like you said, like Egan's there. It's like the sibling looking out for you, thinking, oh, maybe maybe stick to jujitsu. It's kind of what you know. It's kind of what it's easier.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
the thing is, Egan's not a fighter. Egan is a jiu-jitsu guy.
hmm
He fought and he did well in fighting, but he didn't enjoy it.
mm,
He did it for the money. He did it for as a job. He did not do it because he had the passion or wanted to test himself or anything. He wanted to pick fighters he won. He didn't. I mean, he wanted to pick fighters that he could beat.
mm,
He didn't. He's a totally different
different
fighter than
mentality.
me. He's a totally different idea, totally different mentality.
Mm,
So what Egan's saying isn't bad.
yeah,
Egan's just saying what he really believes, and that, and,
hmm
and I think even in Egan's fighting career, every time he fought, he was like, "I don't know why the fuck I'm doing this. I don't want to do this. I want to do jiu-jitsu." There's no striking. There's less pressure. So what Egan said wasn't bad. It was something that he was, as an older brother, trying to take care of me as a little brother, giving me good advice. Saying, "Dan, this MMA shit, there's too much to cover. Let's go back to jiu-jitsu." And he knew how good I was in jiu-jitsu. I was probably one of the best guys in Hawaii, so I had a huge future in jiu-jitsu, but that wasn't where my heart was at.
yeah,
But I wasn't going to be dumb about it. If I
hmm
if I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it. And I felt that, remember, I wanted one fight. I wanted one
hmm
fight to get the jitters, learn about myself, see
yeah,
if I can overcome my anxieties. And man, I just felt that, I got 5 fights. That's better than that one that I thought I was going to get. And I felt that the ensign that never had any fights wasn't going to be as prepared as this ensign is now if there was a life and death situation that came up.
hmm
So, you know, if I hang it up, I wasn't giving up on the whole thing about learning about myself and becoming stronger. I think I did a good job with that. And of course, I could have fought more and learned more about myself and get stronger. But remember, I always remember where I came from. The first thing was getting one fight and getting that little bit of experience just to make me a better person.
hmm
So yeah, that was like you said, man, so many things added together that it's amazing that I didn't hang it up. It was amazing that I did take that one more fight, which is I'm
yeah.
glad I did.
Did any of the fighters on the card maybe say anything to you that sort of resonated? Just because you had Noboru fighting in the main event against Hoyler Gracie, he obviously took a loss as well. Rumina got the draw, so I didn't know whether any of like some of your like Shooto teammates said anything that were coming in sort of similar circumstances, or did you just feel like completely different in terms of where your thinking was at, maybe with their thinking?
Well, no, it was the Shuto guys. I'm like the senpai, like I'm the older person, so they won't come talk to me about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Especially after a hard loss, I think a lot of people were hesitant to even confront me or talk to me about anything.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is, Lumina won. I think he beat John Lewis in that fight, didn't he?
It's a win or a draw. I think it might have been a draw.
Oh, okay. And then Asahi lost. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in that whole thing, after the magazine came out, the whole theme of that magazine that they had was it said Nihon Saijaku, which is the Japan is weak.
No
So all the
way.
fighters from Japan lost. So the Japan magazine titled like, "Oh shit, Japan is not strong fighters. There's no strong fighters in Japan." And I was considered one of them from Japan. So I felt a sense of responsibility that a big part of it was me. A big part of it was always a heavyweight, hope. Although I wasn't the main event because Hoyler was in it, I still felt, I was a big part of Japanese fighters looking weak. And for me, I was like, man, I gotta, it's not something I want to end on. So I did want to, and the thing too is, I don't know. We're gonna discuss it in the next podcast. Yeah, about my next fight. Yeah.
Mustak. We'll get into that in the next one. But that, especially coming off, because he performed on that card, right? And
and there's a reason why I chose him. Of course, a lot of people, Sayama wanted me to fight someone that I could beat. He wanted me to get back in the win column. He wanted me to, get my confidence back. And for me, I was on the whole different mode. I was totally like, if I'm going to decide on this fight whether I'm going to stay or not, I don't want a weak person. I don't want this false sense of security that I can still fight. I don't want to waste my time. I want to fight an animal. I want to fight someone that's going to kick my ass. And I want to see what I can do. And that's when we went into the selection of the next fighter. So if I go any further, then I'll be taking away from the next podcast.
Did you have any other dealings with Igor Zinoviev after the fight at all? Just out of interest?
No, I don't think I've ever seen him again.
So do you know what he did for a career after he retired?
No, what did he do?
Okay, if you don't know, you're going to be shocked. So apparently he was a bodyguard for Jeffrey Epstein.
Whoa.
Yeah, for a good couple of years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So obviously I think he retired soon after the Frank Shamrock fight. I think he tried to continue fighting, but he got really injured. I don't know if you remember that one. That was the one where
his neck,
he slammed him like really bad. And I think it was his collarbone or something. But
wow.
When I was having a look a bit of research, it was like Igor was apparently a bodyguard for Jeffrey Epstein. So
wow. Well, I guess I wouldn't be able to attack Jeffrey Epstein, right? I wouldn't be able to touch Jeffrey Epstein because if the guy that kicked my ass is bodyguarding, I'd stay away from that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you'd be able to talk about either, right? So
yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that.
So cool. Well, I mean, we'll wrap up this episode just because I think it was a great episode. We need to talk about this fight. And it's one where, when we look at it, it's such a quick fight, right? But there's so much that comes out of it because of your thinking. And it's a fight that affects your whole career. So I guess because we've done a couple of episodes, right, where you've given really good advice to fighters, I'm curious. So, when some of these fighters have these like 40-second performances where, they get knocked out or they get submitted really quickly, what's your advice to them to sort of get back on the horse and really go for it again?
Well, I think the biggest advice I can give is, you really got to understand that shit happens. And, for me right now, what I say at my seminars is, wins and losses, don't even concentrate on the wins and losses because there's something you can't control. What you can control is giving 100%. So, that fight, I went and got a good takedown. I escaped the guillotine, got caught, and fight was over. But up until the point where I got caught, and even when I got caught, I gave 100%. If I could continue after I got caught, I would have. It's the fact that I was a little, doozy. I was woozy after the first punch, and then got even more woozy after the second punch. I mean, that's not any effect of me not giving 100%. So, my advice is, all your job is to do in the ring is to give 100%. The win and loss will come, and you can't control it. So that's the big thing. The thing I learned the most about that fight, which really helped my career, was that the guard position, when we're in jiu-jitsu, we're taught that the guard position is a good position. it's an advantageous position. Like I said in the Estes fight,
Yeah.
I was getting little punches here and there, but because he could defend the arm bars and the sweeps, I was in the bottom. So when you're on the bottom, you're taking the blunt of the blow. Even if I'm punching from the top, from the bottom, I can't get as much velocity because I don't have the the leverage on the punches. So Estes one already caught me like thinking that shit, man. I had the so-called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu taught me that the guard position was the advantageous position. I had the advantageous position, but I lost. So right there, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. But I had a good guard. I had a good guard where people couldn't pass. I had a good attack with the guard. I had good arm bars. I had good sweeps. So when the Igor's fight came, when he had it in the guillotine, I had no problem rolling over to the guard. Because I still, in my head, I was in the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu mode saying that the guard is a good position. And when I got hit and I got knocked out, that's another thing I took to the table. And when I went back to, learn and see what I can do to become a better fighter in the next fight, is I realized that, hey, wait a minute, the guard in MMA is actually a dangerous position to be in the bottom. I learned that. That was a big lesson that I learned, So, the loss, like I always say, when you after your fight's over, the true victory and true defeat is not defined in the ring, whether your hand gets raised or not. The true victory and true defeat is going to depend on if you can learn from that fight and step in the ring a better fighter the next time. So if I can step in the fight because of that loss or because of that victory, whatever happened in the ring, where's my hand? I don't even want to call it loss and victory. I want to say, if my hand was raised or my hand was not raised in the ring, whatever it is, if I learned from it and I stepped into the ring a better fighter next time, in the long run, it was a victory. Although it may give me a little L on my record, it made me become a better fighter. So it is a victory. So that was my whole thing, is I learned about that too. I learned about that, wins and losses is something that you really can't control.
Yeah.
And the really wins and losses and victories and defeat is going to determine not in the ring, but after. So, that's one thing I would tell these fighters that take that, that loss, that, that super fast loss that they're caught off guard with, is, hey, it's an L, but it's not a defeat.
Yeah.
Go back in the training camp, learn a little, even if it's a short fight, learn a little bit from that fight, become even a millimeter of a better fighter, then it was a victory. Yeah. So that's my advice to fighters that go through that kind of experience.
Awesome. Well, I want to wish you luck, as you have a very busy weekend ahead of you with Tsuyoshi. I'm sure you guys are, it's pretty close now to the fight day, but
3 days away.
Awesome, man. Well, any parting words before we wrap this one up?
No, it's funny because this chapter in my book was probably one of the shortest chapters, because it was something that I don't know if I wrote it, didn't want to write about it, or I just didn't have any feelings on it, because it was something that wasn't a very good memory. But it's interesting that although I didn't write about it, because of this podcast, you can see how much I've learned from it, how much in depth that whole experience was. It wasn't as it looks like what I wrote in the book. Like, okay, yeah, I went in, I trained hard, I lost, I was super bummed, and I was done. I lost. Shit. It wasn't like that. There was so much involved in it. It was, in fact, it was one of my better victories. I learned a lot in that fight. I learned a lot in the fight, and that fight has made me a better fighter. So it just my last, that was supposed to be like a few last parting words, but that was like a parting paragraph. So my parting words is, man, never take anything too heavily.
Yeah.
Keep your head up, walk on, learn from any type of situation, good or bad. And remember that, life goes on, man.
Yeah.
I can laugh about it. That was a horrible night, but I can laugh about it today.
Yeah.
I can see Igor one day and laugh and say, damn, you beat the shit out of me, man.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe, as there's lots of more good content coming up shortly. And we will talk to you guys again soon.